Hello, everybody. I'm Pedro.
And I am Meredith.
And this is Gritty Reboot. I don't know why I have a wife with a weird voice again. Today is a little bit different. We are not covering a reboot per se. We are talking about Evil Dead 2, and we actually have some guests in the house.
Yes, it's a special episode. We have my brother and my sister-in-law here.
You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm the brother-in-law.
He is the brother-in-law?
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm the sister-in-law.
Slash wife.
Wife, yeah.
Together, we just decided, they were visiting, hey, let's just do a show together.
Yeah, why not?
Let's get in there, let's podcast. Podcasting is about having some fun and talking.
Let's get some guests.
And so we were trying to take a look at a movie that we could all talk about, something that was kind of interesting to us all. And we went through just the doom scroll of finding something on Prime and Netflix and everything like that. And we stumbled upon Evil Dead 2. And we realized this is a weirdly special film for all of us.
Yeah.
Meredith, do you want to talk about us and Evil Dead?
Yeah, actually, Evil Dead 2 specifically was the first movie that you ever showed me.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah.
At the time, it was my favorite film. Now it's still one of my favorite movies. If not, it's certainly top 3 still today.
Yeah, you had to show me this movie from the very moment
I did, yeah.
we
I was
talked.
like, you need to watch it. You there will be a line in your life that you can draw from before you saw Evil Dead 2 to your life becoming amazing.
I think that was your girlfriend test.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it really was. Like, if you didn't like that movie, you're just like, it's all right. I was like, well, I better be hitting the dusted trail. But that's not how it turned out.
No.
And now, you guys are also, you have a little thing with Evil Dead 2 as well.
Yep,
Yeah, that was the first movie I showed you when you came over.
because we had streamed the first one together.
I really don't know why I put it on, to be honest. I mean, it's just a good movie. It's a good watch.
Yeah, it is. It's just, it's a fun movie. And I think if somebody can't vibe with it, I
Yeah.
think that's when you have to be a little bit worried.
Yeah.
That is this person my speed? Like, is there just movies that she's just like, this is stupid. I don't care for this.
She sat through it and didn't look at me with disgust towards the end, so I think it worked out.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it before. It was a new film to me.
Yeah, and I think it's a really different experience, I think, than a lot of other horror movies because it is sillier than most horror movies that I can really think of.
Yeah.
And I really mean silly. I think that's the main takeaway from Evil Dead 2.
But it's got so much heart.
It does.
It really does.
Yeah.
I think this level of gore combined with this Three Stooges comedy and just Sam Raimi finding himself as a director, I think makes for this really impressive combo combined with Bruce Campbell physically going all out, kicking his own ass multiple times and having it look amazing on screen.
You see, I always thought the first movie, they were actually trying to take a serious stab at horror.
Yeah.
Like, to try to be serious, but it just came across so not seriously scary.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
And then they just ran with it in the second one.
And the thing about it is stumbling upon, like, you call that camp. Stumbling
Yeah.
upon good camp is difficult because people try to make intentionally cheesy and bad movies, and they usually just end up as forgettable kind of schlock, or maybe something you can kind of smile through. But like something that's truly campy, like Evil Dead or like early John Waters movies and things like that. There's an appeal to them that's going to last forever because not a lot of movies are really like that.
No.
This thing that someone shot for the moon and missed so fucking hard. This movie, there's another one that I enjoy, and hopefully one day we'll get to see Manos, Hands of Fate.
Yeah.
That's one of the worst movies ever, and that's not a guy trying to make a bad movie. He shot for it and he missed so fucking hard. The same thing I feel like I Spit on Your Grave. Like that guy tried to make a really dramatic film about rape and what it means.
No,
and
I've
then
seen that
He
movie.
made an exploitation movie instead.
That one.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
God.
yeah, there's a couple sequels, and the reboot has, I think, like 3 sequels.
Karen, I would not recommend you watch
They're
that
rape
movie.
revenge movies.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they're rape revenge movies.
Yeah, and they're hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, if you're down with that kind of thing, then sure. But
They don't pull their punches?
No.
Oh.
Oof.
No.
I'm just saying there are multiple dicks cut off in the franchise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey. Hard can.
I mean, she gets her revenge. I mean, she does.
That's a good movie.
That is a good film.
Really good movie.
Yeah.
Four years ago, in this quiet forest, in this cozy cabin, something happened. Something so frightening. Something so deadly. Something so evil. We pray.
So as always, I get into a little history about the film before we really start talking about it. And obviously, Evil Dead 2 is the sequel to Evil Dead. But between this movie and the first one, Sam Raimi made a film called Crime Wave. And his pitch to the studio was, I want to make like a living Looney Tunes movie. Like live action, pure cartoon action. And you can watch Evil Dead 2 and you can see that kind of cartoon idea throughout it. And the movie was plagued by a ton of studio interference. They didn't trust, a young director, which he really was. He'd only made The Evil Dead, so they didn't trust him at all. And they interfered a lot. And the movie ended up pretty much as a disaster. And I enjoy it because I enjoy watching talented filmmakers miss, because I think that's very interesting, especially where you see where they're going to go. I'm also kind of fascinated by tales of studio interference. A movie that I hate but have watched many times is Guillermo del Toro's Mimic. And Guillermo del Toro is a great director.
Yes,
one of the best.
My favorite.
And
one of my favorites.
Mimic is pretty crappy.
Yeah.
But it is plagued by Weinstein interference. They absolutely thought nothing of Guillermo del Toro and second-guessed him at every step. Which really,
now.
Yeah, and now, of course, that's a movie you wonder, had they not completely messed that up, like what it could have been. But, that's just sort of how studios do things. Mm-hmm. Those guys can't help but think like, I can fix this movie. Not this guy who's trained for it. Not these writers. Me, this producer who doesn't know jack shit about filmmaking. I'm going to fix this movie from the sidelines.
Hell yeah.
And it ruins a lot of things. And anyway, that's what happened to Sam Raimi's second movie, and that's what led them into the production of Evil Dead 2. They had to run back to the franchise. Listen, there's a lot of filmmakers who had to do it, and it worked out pretty well for Raimi, because this is a much better film than the original.
Was it the guy that wrote the film for Terminator? It was just like that, too. He had a rocky start, living out of his garage.
Yeah.
And it said that he had... his mom was sending him Burger King coupons.
Yeah.
And, look at that franchise. It blew up.
Yeah. He put everything on the line on that one. He was, doing truck driving jobs when not doing film jobs.
Yeah.
Everything he could to just kind of stay, because even then living in LA was expensive, and it all worked out,
Yeah.
He was a wild man and crazy, but, he was almost practically a slave driver, but, it all worked out. Meredith, is there any facts on Evil Dead 2?
Yeah, but you know what? I think we ought to talk about one little thing before that. I think if you want to give us a little shout out, tell us how we're doing in life.
Dial 1-800
in podcast.
Gritty Reboot.
You can go ahead and email us at grittyrebootcast@gmail.com.
Just email Gmail.
Just
make it the subject line, Gritty Reboot Podcast, and they'll send it to the right place.
Yeah.
That's not how that works at all.
No.
Now, if you're looking for a more modern way to get a hold of us, you can just simply search Gritty Reboot on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yep.
And that'll get a hold of us.
But I do have some pretty good facts.
All right. She led into the social media, and that is such an achievement. She really, because sometimes we do this like right before we close the damn show.
Yeah, we remember at the last
possible second.
All right. Stephen King was such a huge fan of The Evil Dead that he convinced producer Dino De Laurentiis over dinner, who was the producing King's Maximum Overdrive at the time, to have his production company DEG finance Evil Dead 2.
So Stephen King is instrumental in the career of Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. He is just at a random film festival in Chicago, and he sees The Evil Dead, and he's blown away by it. He just absolutely loves it and gives them a great quote, and they plaster that quote everywhere on the poster, that Stephen King loved the movie. And that's what really got the doors open for them and put them as a movie that people wanted to see and wanted to be rented. It was all because of Stephen King's endorsement. So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he really helped launch them. Without them, who knows what happens. But he dug the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I got senses of that sort of like Stephen King feel. It was not in the first one.
Do you not like the first one?
I can't rewatch it.
Well, if you think about it, taken seriously, it is a lot like a King story. Friends going to a cabin, them turning on each other by some ancient evil, they accidentally wake up. I can see that as a King story.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to get the King cliches and everything like that. You're going to get every female's character's breast described perfectly for some reason. One of my favorites.
Isn't Stephen King into some weird shit though?
He is.
Like the original book, like when he wrote about kids like having sex together.
He did.
So maybe he saw the rape scene in that movie Evil Dead with the tree.
Was like,
maybe
I
he was
dig
like,
this.
oh yeah, this is it. This is for me.
That's the thing about King. He just wants to shock you every now and
Yeah, a little bit.
which I appreciate because we covered Firestarter last year, and I read the book, and one of my favorite passages in it is the father of the Firestarter can read people's minds. That's why I'm putting my hand to my temple to indicate that I'm reading your mind. But he's just doing this randomly as he's going through a bunch of tests, and then out of nowhere, Stephen King drops, "The man who drew blood was a handsome gentleman, but no one knew that he had a corpse under his bed that he had sex with nightly."
Jesus.
For no reason. He just throws that in there and just walks away from that fact. Absolutely. We never meet this character again. We never see the corpse. She's not important to the story at all. But it's just what King does.
Just a little nugget of shit.
Yeah.
Put it in there.
He just likes to shock every now and then. If you've ever seen Sleepwalkers, he has nothing but shock in that movie. It's like incest and cat kills.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some serious
Never
undertones
seen
there.
it.
A man is killed with a corn cob in that film. That's I'm not even kidding. Yeah.
That is impressive.
It might be Ron Perlman, I think, actually.
Although the cabin is supposed to be the same as the one from Evil Dead, that movie was shot in Morristown, Tennessee. The sequel filmed nearly 270 miles to the east in Wadesboro, North Carolina. Most of the film was shot on set built inside the gymnasium of Wadesboro J.R. Faison Junior High School. Financier Dino De Laurentiis had originally offered his studio in Wilmington, but director Sam Raimi chose Wadesboro, a 3-hour drive, fearing that being so close to Dino De Laurentiis' office would lead to a studio interference.
Dino De Laurentiis is sort of a legendary producer.
Yeah.
In positive and negative ways. But I had seen a lot of the behind the scenes footage where they were in a gymnasium shooting this movie in an incredibly hot environment. There is, if you watch the scenes where the Evil Dead is following Bruce Campbell through the house, you know, that whole thing, you can see the top of the set. You can see the top of the gym. If you look, yeah.
I would have never guessed that they were in a gym.
Yeah, because there's no roof on a set because you got to put lights there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you know, Rami was moving so quick, he was like, don't worry about it, nobody will ever see it. And it's true, nobody would because you're looking at what you're supposed to be looking at, Bruce Campbell running for his life. You only notice it when you watch the movie a dozen times on DVD and Blu-ray. But that is one of the things about it. But it was brutally hot. There's a scene later in the movie where the director's brother, Ted Raimi, he's playing Henrietta in the basement, the monster.
Yeah.
Late in the movie, he is kind of floating in the air and he turns his head and there's this white fluid that comes out his ear. That is not an effect. That is the sweat pouring out of his suit because he got tipped over a little too much.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a truly awful environment to shoot in.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm reading from Google that it's a requel.
Technically, yeah. I guess we should talk about that.
That's true.
Right now.
That's true.
The movie does begin with the same exact intro that the first film has because they were unable to secure the footage from the original movie.
Yeah.
They weren't able to get that recap footage, basically, to start the second movie where they wanted to. So they were just like, well, screw it. We'll just reshoot the first movie in like 15 minutes. And that's what it is. That's why Linda shows back up again, dies again, and, you know, there's no extra other people, but they needed to eat. I mean, either way, he was going to go back to the cabin. So that's the one thing I love, that Bruce Campbell's like, no, he doesn't go back to the cabin in this movie, but yes, Ash is completely stupid enough to go back to the cabin anyway. Which he doesn't.
You know, in the original version of the script, there was a scene where the characters smoked weed when they first listened to the tape, but I guess they got cut out of that.
I remember I listened to the commentary on that one. It's really funny too because the takes were just gibberish. Like they thought they were
actually really high.
Yeah, they thought they were like improv masters, and like Raimi showed them the footage. Like, you guys didn't say anything that was funny or get the plot across at all. You just rambled for 15 minutes. And back then, you know, a reel is only about 13 minutes. That's all that's on a reel of film. That's all you get. That's all you get. So, and they might have had like maybe 2 or 3 of those a night.
Jeez.
Yeah. You forget now. You just roll an SD card or a hard drive as long as you want. It doesn't really matter. 4K uncompressed, but that's 16 millimeter. And like every shot had to count because not only does that you have a limited amount, it costs money to process and develop that.
Jeez.
Yeah. The filmmaking on that level is quite expensive, even like a low budget film. Now, digital, I mean, anybody can shoot something on iPhone.
So somebody like Stanley Kubrick would have used a ton.
Millions of dollars were wasted on
Of
Stanley
film.
Kubrick doing 70 takes for people picking
Yeah.
up a pen off a table. I watched the story about Sidney Pollack. He's another filmmaker. He's in Eyes Wide Shut. As I said, he's a director. So he's like, okay, I've never worked with Kubrick before. It's be kind of interesting. So he goes on the very first day to work on Eyes Wide Shut, and he does one scene, and Kubrick does 5 takes, and that's it. He does the one line. He's like, oh, this is bullshit. The next day, the first shot they have to do is him grabbing a pool ball and rolling it across the table. Kubrick made him do it 97 times. 97. And he was like, what? Why do we need 97 times? He was like, Sidney, you're a director. Don't you want it perfect? And that's just how it is. Yeah, there's a lot of directors. David Fincher, he does a ton of takes as well. It's just wild. And now, I mean, Fincher, that's why he works digital, so he doesn't have to answer to anybody. He can do whatever he wants. But like Kubrick wasted so much money doing hundreds of takes.
The large demonic head Ash battles in the climax of the film, which the crew nicknamed the Rotten Apple Head, was too large and cumbersome for the crew to carry back to California. So it went left in North Carolina and soon disappeared. Its whereabouts were unknown for a number of years until it was found in a Halloween haunted house attraction just outside the original shooting location of Wadesboro, North Carolina.
So I wonder who just held on to that thing for like 15
Who
years.
stole
just,
it, though?
Yeah, just in their
Yeah, I was about
basement.
to say, who stole it?
Yeah, you had to have like a pretty big truck to freaking get that thing out. And like drive down the road with it without being seen.
And also, they don't know what it is. Like, they don't know it's from an iconic movie. The movie hasn't been released yet. It's just hanging out there while they're finishing the movie. They're like, yeah, we should probably hang on to this thing.
This is the head at the end of the movie.
Yeah, the one
Yeah.
where
He's on. He shoots the.
No, I think the big one, right?
The
Okay.
Yeah,
big-
the one he
giant
puts
one.
the
The tree
chainsaw
thing,
on.
yeah.
the tree thing.
Oh yeah, you couldn't get away with that.
No,
That'd be
no.
kind of hard to hide.
Yeah.
It's very creepy looking, but Jesus.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the head from.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they.
Oh, the one that bit the hand.
No. The
He's talking to Henrietta's
the
head.
chimpanzee flying lady.
Long neck.
Oh, that thing.
Yeah. Swallow this. Just like that, we're going to recap the entire film that way.
Yeah. Bruce Campbell completely improvised the scene where he fights his possessed hand in the kitchen of the cabin.
So good.
Sam Raimi praised his performance and used the first take for the film.
Yeah, I would too.
First
Perfect.
fucking take.
So
perfect.
that sort of thing I talk about is trying to get it perfect, and that's Raimi was so impressed he nailed it right there, and he probably had him do another couple for safety, but he was like, no, we got it.
It's like watching a real life cartoon. Like it's him hitting himself with plates and bowls, and then pulling himself with his own hand.
Campbell is the perfect actor for
Yeah.
this kind of thing.
Yes.
And he has the physicality at that age
Mm-hmm.
to do a lot of things. It's really impressive, like him flipping himself over. I mean, he really does make it look like he is kicking his own ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
His own ass.
it's very it's very impressive. As limited as he can be in other ways, like in this movie, he's just brilliant. Nobody else could pull this off. What he does in this movie.
Yeah.
He has such a unique skill set that is put together perfectly by what Raimi has him do.
The only time I've ever seen anybody in a movie kick their own ass equally or better than Bruce Campbell would have to be Jim Carrey in
I was just thinking that
in the bathroom when he's
kicking my own.
kicking my ass. Do you mind?
The sexy, surly Bobby Joe was inspired by Holly Hunter, who was a housemate of Sam Raimi's in the early 80s, along with Joe Cohen and Frances McDormand.
So yeah,
What to be
She
a
sticks
fly
out.
on the wall.
Very random.
The
Yeah.
Coen brothers and Sam Raimi, Holly Hunter, and Frances McDormand all lived together at some point.
That's such a weird combination.
On the commentary track to this movie, Sam Raimi told a story where Holly Hunter said she was always in like a baggy shirt and like sweatpants or like jeans, and she came down in a dress and said, "Oh, Holly, you look nice today. It's cool. You look great." And she was like, "Fuck you, Sam. I'm playing a hooker today."
One particular incident inspired the character. Hunter was auditioning for a hooker part and was unusually made up and wearing a sexy short-skirted outfit. She became angry at Raimi when he somewhat leered at her. Raimi pulled for Hunter to play the part, but producers wanted someone sexier.
So this is the chick that was with this is the Bobby Joe.
Bobby Joe.
The one
Dipping
where you're
chick.
like, why is she with that guy?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he was packing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He had something he was hiding.
Yeah.
That's the only explanation.
9 inches of Deadite down there.
Yeah.
Got
He had his own
feels.
Necronomicon. Necronomicock. I had to be said.
Wow.
You're welcome.
After watching the final cut of the film, producer Dino De Laurentiis knew for certain the film would get an X rating from the MPAA due to the high amount of violence and gore.
Mm.
However, Sam Raimi argued if the film would be recut to secure an R rating, he would only be around an hour long. Since De Laurentiis wasn't allowed to release an unrelated film, he ultimately decided to pseudonymously credit his production company under the name Rosebud Releasing Corporation.
And that's in the Rosebud opening up at the start of the movie. They shot that like in the parking lot of De Laurentiis' studio. Like literally like a couple days before the film was like ready to print. They just like went outside, shot that, took it to the developer, got it done, and threw it right in the movie, and it was good.
Yeah, and that's how he got around the MPAA.
That was why they did the green
and,
blood.
Yeah, the green and
randomly
black
inserted.
blood, a lot of bile.
Yeah.
Now that was their thinking, is they could get around it, but it didn't work. So.
And then they went real light with the, rapiness with the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around.
Even though I don't know if that would have made a difference.
Very suggestive,
in an
but
R
we
rating.
don't know.
Yeah.
Did she get 8 or
Torn apart.
Yeah.
sticked?
Ugh.
Yeah, it's left ambiguous, thankfully.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Last fact I have. Ash Bruce Campbell drives the same 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 as the original film. The car was owned by Sam Raimi at the time, originally bought by Raimi's father for the family when Sam was 14.
Yeah, so like I said, it is literally his family car. And that's why it was the Evil Dead, because if it got messed up, it was kind of whatever.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, it's my dad's old car, so.
They definitely destroyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, and they got it repaired so they could use it again. I don't know if it's in Crime Wave. I'm pretty sure that it is.
Yeah.
But I've only seen Crime Wave the one time. So that's the only one I can't vouch for. And I know it's not in Quick and the Dead because it wouldn't make any sense if it was in a Western movie. But yeah, it is in every one of his movies, so.
Yeah.
Easter egg. Definite Easter egg.
Yeah, it's even in the Oz movie.
When you know about it, you just can't help but look for it.
Yeah.
Now I have to go back and watch the Multiverse of Madness.
Yep. It's in
Oh
there.
yeah, it's in that. Yeah, it's in
I'm
that.
gonna
Yeah.
go watch it now.
As is Bruce Campbell is the pizza popper or something. I forget what he plays in that, but it was good to see him in the MCU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
So, what is everybody's favorite part of this movie? Okay.
It's a rough one.
And I'll tell you mine. Mine is when the girlfriend is dancing
Yeah.
and she makes that ah.
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest laughs in the movie.
Yeah.
I got lucky enough like 15 years ago when we had a theater, and I just forgot the name of it, opened downtown. And it's the one that Oswald ran into after he shot the president. And they reopened it, and one of the first movies they showed was Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. And it was great to see them with an audience because we
didn't get that.
Yeah, you only see these movies by yourself at home, maybe with a couple of friends.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way we experience it. So it was very cool to watch this movie with an audience reacting to every moment of it. And that was the biggest laugh in the movie. Like the second it happens, everybody and most people awed along with her. So and it was a great little moment. It was weirdly kind of like Rocky Horror. People knew all the lines.
Yeah.
I know for some people that might seem like a nightmare theater experience, but it was such a communal thing that everybody we were all having just a great time with this movie.
I'd have to say my favorite, or at least it stands out to me, is just because it's stupid. When he becomes a Deadite and he's messing with him, and then he snaps out of it just randomly because he's reminded of his old dead girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
And the very annoying screaming girl, he's fighting with her, and then he's like, I'm all right, and he just pauses for a minute up against the wall, and you just see a random axe right next to his head. He's like, I'm all right. It's like,
are you hearing me? Yeah, that's probably the second biggest laugh in the movie.
Yeah.
Is when she's
just
like,
random axe.
yeah, because he literally takes a deep breath to relax, and then it comes right at him.
Yeah.
Karen?
I mean, I've seen it a few times now, and I think what
being
still
like-
gets me is the railroad. You know, he gets there, and then that scene's gone, and you get to the next one, and we were watching it, and you commented about, what is he doing there with the signs and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
And you read, it pans over with the light going up to the railroad, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of broken now. I don't know why, but that just is the only scene that I love every time I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's just like the weird crooked ways of the railroad, and it's
like a hand
Yeah.
coming up like that.
Yeah, that's the
like
impression
it's
I got.
gone.
Yeah, I like the way it is here as opposed to like in the original movie where they can't pass. It's also done really well in the reboot because it's just the water is rushing in and it blows the bridge away. So it's a very realistic one
Yeah.
as opposed to this one being very supernatural. So I think that's sort of
I
interesting.
don't remember in the movie if they even showed anything happening to it. It feels like it was just inserted, like, oh, hey, by the way, the bridge is
It's just
gone.
gone. It's
They
just
can't
gone.
leave. Because in the first movie, they were like actively trying to leave in the car.
Yeah.
And in this one, it was like, meh.
Well, that's part of like remaking the first movie in 15
Right.
minutes.
Kind of
Yeah, you can
sprinkling little
stretch that
shit of
out in the
facts
first
in
movie.
there.
You just got to get through those ideas.
Yeah.
So for myself, obviously, the main scene that sticks with me is the groovy scene. I think it sort of is everything that Sam Raimi is in just one sequence. Quick cuts, these weird camera moves that make these kind of noises, that gives the scene this weird kind of energy. And then it ends on this tongue-in-cheek joke of like this guy ready to kick some ass finally. The dumbest person you know is finally ready to
That's our
go
hero.
kick some ass.
Yep.
Groovy. And I mean, it's great. The other one I have to mention is when he's going insane in the house and he starts like going up and
Oh, with the
down
lamp.
as all the
lamp and the clock.
yeah, the lamp and all everything in the house has come alive and laughing at him.
Yeah.
Like him looking at the camera like like his nuts maniacal laugh. It's just fantastic. That was the menu to the DVD back in the day. It always used to make me smile that it just was him laughing for it popped up Evil Dead 2.
Yeah. I like the gore in this movie too.
Yeah.
Even though the blood looks like
You get a little lazy with the blood
water,
pouring out,
waterish.
watery blood.
Yeah.
Just-
This I think this is the first movie by K&B. And that is a legendary effects house. They would eventually basically be main producers on The Walking Dead.
All right.
Greg Nicotero, he was the lead, I believe, on this movie. He did most of the creature design and the effects work, and he ended up directing, I think, like a handful of Walking Dead episodes and was a producer on most of that show. Greg Nicotero is in Dusk Till Dawn. Like he's in the scene with Tom Savini.
Okay.
In that he's sitting right next to him. He's the guy who threatens him and he pulls the cock gun out on. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he pulls that knife on. He
Okay.
pulls in, and Greg Nicotero backs away. So, and now you think about it, you've probably seen he's been a zombie a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
you probably see him in a bunch of movies. We just watched Wishmaster the other day. He was in that. Yeah, he's a legendary horror guy, and this is where he got his start. So,
All right.
yeah.
Interesting.
I
There
think
you go.
And as a fact, I can't back up 100%, but I know K&B did work on it, and Nicotero was big on it. May not have been there first, but it was early for them.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have watched like all three. I have them backlogged in my brain for 1, 2, and I guess technically 3. Army of Darkness.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it is 3. It is the third film, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a weird third movie. Universal said, we want a third Evil Dead film, but we don't want you to call it Evil Dead.
Yeah, I
It
don't
was like,
understand that.
Okay, yeah, because for most of the production, it was The Medieval Dead.
Really?
Yeah, which is a much better title than what
Yeah.
they ended up working with, actually. And I think it was the last second marketing was like, no, Medieval Dead is not going to work. And Raimi's point was like, but if we don't name it The Medieval Dead, no one's going to know it's an Evil Dead movie. If it's just called Army of Darkness. And I can remember I was watching, I think like 2020 on a Friday night as a young kid. And I saw the trailer come on for Army of Darkness. And my mom told me, you need to go to bed right now, turn the TV off. And I was grabbed by this trailer for Army of Darkness. And I stared at that TV like, wow, like this guy's fighting zombies? That's cool. I'd never seen something like that in a big movie. And I was so entranced by it, I had not noticed that my mom came into the room and turned my TV off for me, and I wasn't allowed to watch TV the rest of the weekend because I pushed my bedtime by a few minutes. But that was the first introduction I had to Bruce Campbell, was that moment.
Well, mine in particular is from my dad. As random as it is, we used to watch it on VHS all the time. I know that movie well.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I watched it as a kid. It didn't bother me like, I guess Evil Dead 2 kind of bothered me when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, it's a little more in your head, I guess.
Yeah.
Him going crazy, but Army of Darkness is just one big joke.
Yeah, it's pure fun. It's a
and
pure
they
B
just
movie.
play with everything, and who doesn't want to see him wield a sword and
Yeah, because it's an Evil Dead movie combined with a fantasy epic.
Yeah.
with like a
They got car in
1950
there.
style fantasy epic. It works really well. Like Raimi directs the hell out of the movie. It's a ton of fun and it's tongue in cheek. I mean, literally, Duke Nukem's entire character is built off the.
that's what I'm saying. Like
the
you hear
dumbass
those and
that
you
Ash
play Duke
Williams
Nukem,
is.
you're like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
see where you're going there.
Yeah, and that's the one of the things that I've always found really impressive is the movie flopped and it had such a cultural impact on really everything. Like the fact is that Evil Dead, the franchise, is the most popular cult franchise there's ever been. To where the fact you can't call it a cult anymore. I mean, there's been multiple movies. There's been 2 reboots. There's a TV show. There's 4 or 5 video games.
Yeah.
None of them good, but they're out there.
Yeah.
There's an Xbox One that's okay, but I'm not getting into it. Hey, listen, I played the PlayStation 1 back in the day when I wanted to love it, and it was awful. So I did my time on that.
Just something endearing about the Evil Dead. I don't know. It's just one of those horror films where, to me, it just doesn't feel like a horror film. It's just a good film to watch.
Comedy.
Yeah. It's comedy.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit. I mean, it's got gore in it, but it doesn't make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what's going on, and it's just fun to watch.
Well, I quote this a lot with Roger Ebert. He said, "Your emotions will never lie to you," and I think Evil Dead is a movie that almost brings such pure joy
Yeah.
for what it is. It's a horror movie. It's a comedy. It just really, it's incredibly fun, and I can't think of a lot of movies that deliver what it does. It doesn't take itself seriously one bit and barely takes a breath. I mean, the movie's just motion.
Yeah, it captivates the entire time.
Yeah, it's just moving with, and even crazy sound effects. And people might call the sound effects over the top, but it fits
Yeah,
right
it
into
works.
the movie.
It
Yeah, it
fits
fits
right
right
in.
into the movie. Like there's a scene in there where his hand gets possessed, and he just he pushes his hand on the ground, and it sounds like a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
Those little moments like that, I think, just add to the otherworldly feel of the movie. This over the top cartoonish nature. And as I said, it equals probably one of the most joyful cinematic experiences I think you could really have.
Yeah. I always enjoyed the camera shots where they're those long camera shots where they're chasing, be chasing them through the forest, and they stuck with that through the entire series.
That's the hallmark of the franchise.
You
Even
don't really see that anywhere else. It's just iconic to me. Like when I see that, I think, oh, Evil Dead.
And it's kind of weird
saw
because for a long time you just called that kind of a Raimi cam,
Right.
Is what you and of course now it lives beyond him. I know he produces the franchise still, which is probably why it's been in a high quality. He still has a hand on it, but he hasn't directed one of the movies since Army of Darkness. So, but still you see that shot persist, and it is the signature shot. And I think the second you see it, you know exactly. You hear that sound, it's Evil Dead.
Yeah. No, like the shot when they're in Evil Dead 2 in the house, and he's chasing him through the house. And it's just you're literally right behind him the whole way in the entire house, and it's one fluid shot, and they're going in between the walls and outside, and it's just crazy. Like
and you think about the physical effort it takes, not just Bruce Campbell maneuvering through all that perfectly. Like he doesn't hit the wall badly and bounce off. Like he has to get through all that, continue to act, but also the camera guy's got to keep that thing steady in the same tight spots and everything like that, and keep the focus. Because
I wish people could have seen you do that.
I know that.
movement in the hands.
Yeah, because I mean because that's how you do it. You have to keep your feet moving pretty quickly like that, and you got to go. But that's the thing. I look at that and I'm like, man, keeping the focus on that would have been pretty tough.
Yeah,
because it's dark in there, and that's it's
tight quarters.
It's impressive for the budget that they had. I think it's like a $2.5-3 million movie. And, what they pull out, really competed with any horror film that Hollywood was producing really at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Much better. And like I said, the movie ended up doing pretty well, obviously, at the box office. And, it certainly made an impact and continued the franchise. So I think that probably the thing that I like is how universal these movies are.
Mm-hmm.
Like over time, like everybody recognizes the Ash character.
Yeah.
And I think it's weird that it took 30 plus years, but I think he's certainly up there with Jason, Dracula, and Freddy, and those kind of icons like that. You see Ash, and you're like, oh, those are those Evil Dead movies. So I think people really understand that more than the Deadite.
Yeah.
The franchise. That's not really what it is.
That's Bruce Campbell to me.
Yeah.
That's when I see Bruce Campbell, I think Evil Dead. When I see him in other films, it's just like, Evil Dead vibes, you know, fast talking one-liners and
He's the last B movie star.
yeah.
He's the last one.
So
of those.
endearing.
You know, because that's not how the system works anymore. We don't have B movies.
No, not really.
You know, I mean, we barely have independent movies. You know, we really do. You know, those independent movies are produced by A24, a giant fucking faceless corporation.
Oh, yeah.
That people think is like an art house.
Yeah.
They just happen to buy really quality films. That's all.
Yeah.
So, if I might ask, who directed the new Evil Dead movies then?
The director of the first one was Fede Alvarez, I believe, and he did the last Alien film. He did Don't Breathe.
That makes sense.
He did an underrated one I really like, Crawl. I think he did that.
Yeah.
I think he did.
He did
that,
Crawl.
Yeah, that's the one with the alligator in the chasing the swimmer
Oh, okay.
in the basement.
Yeah.
Despite my pitch right there, it's actually quite good. Yeah, I mean, listen, if you had to fight an alligator during a flood and you were trapped in a
I
basement,
take
that
it
would
this
be
is
pretty harrowing.
a B movie you're talking about?
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah, I mean, it came out in theaters, so you know,
Okay.
there's no real B movie, but I mean, I think it was pretty good actually.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It turned out better than something like The Shallows,
Oh, yeah.
which is the same concept, except I think there's not as much not as much of the movie is dedicated to how pretty Blake Lively is. Like, there's so much of The Shallows is dedicated to like just looking at Blake Lively. Like, it really is. There's so many leering shots on her, and I'm like, I mean, listen, she's attractive, I get it, but good God, you have to move on to other
They
things.
knew what they were doing.
It's a horror movie.
Yeah. And we just watched Honora the other day, and Sean Baker, director of that, huge pervert, but he moved on and told that story after showing some boobs, right?
Yeah. Of
There's
course.
some titties in there.
Tasty.
No, I was laughing the other day because somebody was trying to expose him. Like, he follows all these OnlyFans models. Like, have you seen his movies? That guy's clearly a pervert. Yeah, of course he follows OnlyFans models.
It makes sense. You know, you're saying that the original title was Medieval Dead. Now it clicks.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that in the first movie, it just being titled Evil Dead.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense with any of the stuff, the history, how there's like different hieroglyphs on these books, and it's the Book of the Dead. That would make sense if it was medieval, because
Yeah.
then you could connect that with the history that goes back. And for me, my brain works, well, how does this all tie in together?
Yeah, like, you don't really need to know like the lore of the Evil Dead to like get it. Like, you can just pick up Evil Dead. You sit down and watch Evil Dead 2 like I did when we first met. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is just fun to watch. I don't need to know what a Deadite is or what the
True.
Necronomicon is or any of that. You're just kind of along for the ride.
But for someone who's just experiencing the titles of Evil Dead 2, and then you see Army of Darkness, none of it makes sense. I didn't know they were connected. I didn't know
Bruce
any
Campbell,
of the...
really, and just the shallow lore behind it. I guess if you were really going
Yeah,
in
because if you're
depth.
watching
Yeah.
Army of Darkness, the style of zombie changes completely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
they're not the same at all.
Once again, Evil Dead 2 is a requel.
right.
So technically, Sam Raimi is just redoing the first movie. He's just doing it the way he wanted it, with the budget that he wanted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could start from the Evil Dead 2, technically.
Yeah.
Technically, you could cut
Yeah.
out the first movie.
You
if
could.
really wanted
You
to.
really could.
I think you deny yourself something.
Yeah,
but
I
you
would-
could really
I would-
cut it out narrative.
Yeah.
I would started with the first one, then went to the second one.
Yeah.
For anybody like, if you've never seen it, it is a little confusing because you're like, wait, didn't I just watch this?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you're like, oh, that's pretty similar, but
I do appreciate how the movie has that kind of confusing element, but it rarely gets questioned.
yeah,
People just kind of accept it at face value. They're like, yeah, he went back, I guess. Makes sense. And he found another girl named Linda. Sure. That tracks. You know, and the thing about it is, like you mentioned the Necronomicon, and I think that's a good job that the reboots have done is exploring a little bit more of that. Like, you don't need all that backstory like you just said. You can just see from this book that obviously you probably shouldn't open it. And like the reboot, I think, does a great job with it. It's like in a trash bag and surrounded by barbed wire, by barbed wire, and it even has a note on it that says, "Do not read this book." And the guy opens it anyway because, honestly, if I
Wouldn't
saw
you?
a book down, I'd be like, "What the fuck's in this book, huh?"
Yeah.
You know, because that'd be the worst thing you could put on to make me read it. You can say like, "This book's about shit eating." Like, no, that's all right. We'll just put that back.
Okay. So I was wondering if the Necronomicon actually originated from the Evil Dead, but it's
Lovecraft.
Lovecraft.
Yeah,
I would have never guessed. Well, it's Lovecraft. It's a little weird.
Lovecraft is the most influential horror author of all time. Not
Yeah.
Arthur. He wasn't named Arthur.
Yeah, he's a little out there, but he made some good shit.
Yeah, Lovecraft really wrote some great. He was a terrible racist and a really bad
Yes.
person. But seriously, if you read his work, he's just like the black man was clearly more of a monkey than a human. Like literally, that's his prose. I'm barely sugarcoating it, except I'm not using slurs. So that's pretty much how he referred to people. He was a hateful man, but he wrote great horror fiction. Oh, Stephen King is the only person more important in horror literature than H.P. Lovecraft.
Pioneer.
Yeah. Not even Bram Stoker really matters. I mean, Dracula's okay.
Yeah.
Like Dracula.
I feel like they've like put it into the ground and are just.
Done to
Hey, that's our big feature we're gonna do later in the year. Is like 8 episodes about different Dracula reboots.
Nosferatu is
We just
the
did
newest
Nosferatu.
one.
We just did Nosferatu.
Yeah, we just watched it.
I haven't seen it yet. I've been debating if I
You gotta go
should.
old school first, then new.
Yeah,
That's what we did.
We watched the 1922 version, and then we watched the 1978 version.
I heard it was pretty faithful to the source material.
It is, and then obviously we watched the new one. I ended up enjoying the 1978 version the most. But
Yeah.
I'm a little weird, but the new one I wasn't enthralled with. Probably because I think Eggers is such an amazing director, and I expected like a 10 out of 10, and it's like a 9, and I'm disappointed by that. So I ended up giving it an 8, I think. But
I gave it a. I think I gave it a 6.
You gave it a 6. I was a little higher on it just because of its craftsmanship, but because I wasn't blown away by it, I was kind of disappointed. And then you sort of have to gauge like, do I really want to be critical of a movie if I'm blown away if I'm disappointed by my own expectations for it? You know, like is that something I can really judge a film for? That I was like, oh, I thought it'd be more amazing than it's just really great. You know, like
The bar high.
yeah, that's the thing. I think the worst thing that happened to Robert Eggers is his first movie was The Witch. Probably one of the finest films I've ever seen.
I know.
You guys seen
Yeah.
The Witch?
I
Yeah.
have not. I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen
I
it?
have not.
Oh
great horror
man, you are missing out.
Was it
Even
about?
my-
First time I
What's it
watched
about?
it, confused. Second time I watched it, yes, hell yes.
Yes,
Like very end. I'm happy with it.
you would. Well, I don't know. You might like it.
Why? Why do you say that? What's it about?
Is he the same guy who
Witch.
directs like Midsummer?
No.
No, that's Ari Aster. That's Ari Aster. Ari Aster did Midsummer and Hereditary. Robert Eggers did The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman.
The Northman.
Okay.
God.
The Northman. Yeah.
That
You
that
didn't like-
movie. The
Yeah.
Northman.
You didn't like it?
It was just. It was like
We
being on
didn't
acid the whole
finish
time.
it. I actually wanted to
And, like-
see how far it would go.
Like playing Skyrim on acid, and it's just like way turned up to like 10.
I liked it.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could be into it, but it was just wasn't for me. I was just like, I can't finish this. I didn't even. Yeah, we
You
didn't
might
even finish
not.
it.
You might not
I
like
got like
him.
3/4. I mean, visually it looks
movies.
amazing, but it's like, what's going on here? Like I'm so lost.
The Witch didn't feel that long. The Northman or Northman.
I was shocked that my dad liked The Northman. And my dad is the most normal movie person there ever is. Like, he likes old westerns, and he was like, oh, it was a pretty good movie. I was like, you like that movie? I was like, that's one of the most artistic directors in Hollywood. I didn't think you'd really dig that. And he's like, oh, yeah, with the mom betraying him, that was great. My dad really dug the hell out of that movie. You never know. Well, he liked the other one, too, Rebel Ridge. That was the other one I recommended he really loved.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, Rebel Ridge, I think that was a great movie. That's going to be on my top 5.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's a movie. It felt like a show, but
Yeah.
it ran so fluidly together.
I don't know anything about that either.
It's a Netflix show.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
A movie.
Netflix original.
Yeah, it's a Netflix original.
Hey, don't be knocking some of those shows.
Yeah, have you seen Gerald's Game?
What is it?
Gerald's Game?
I have
No.
what I wanted.
It's a Stephen King.
Yeah, Gerald's Game might be the strongest
This is another
King
Netflix?
adaptation.
This
Yeah.
is a Netflix.
That's Mike Flanagan, one of the other top horror
Watch
directors.
it. He's one of my favorite directors.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Flanagan, he did the impossible, in my opinion. He made a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and he adapted Stephen King's sequel to The Shining as one, which is particularly impressive.
Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep, yes.
I loved. Oh,
I did too.
adored it. I
The
wish
thing
they
about it
did
is-
more.
Yeah, the thing about it is, like, Kubrick's version of The Shining and King's version couldn't be more different, to be perfectly honest. Kubrick's version is about a family going insane together, and Stephen King's version is about a man struggling with alcoholism. They are the same story with completely different themes throughout them. And so while they might both feature a guy going kind of crazy and stalking people in the house, they are carried out very differently. And that's what makes the fact that he pulled a sequel to both off really impressive.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance, read the book The Shining. Very different experience.
Okay.
One of the few King books I would really recommend anybody read. I think the film version is very different than what the book is. And
That's how I felt about.
To some extent, Kubrick
it.
did a better job with the story. If you're talking about scares,
Yeah.
yeah. If you're talking about scares, yes. But if you're talking about characters, the work King does is
The creativity that you get from reading the book is more fantasy, and it feels more in that sense. But in the movie, I did not get that. It didn't come across to me.
Yeah, you can't really love the family in Kubrick's version as much as you can feel sorry for them when things turn. But like Jack Nicholson's character, and the name of him just escaped me. Does anybody remember the name of Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining?
Jack.
Jack? Is it Jack?
Jack
Okay.
Palance.
Yeah.
No, Jack Palance is
No, it's
City Slickers. Jack McQuack. Jack McShining is his name.
I'm gonna look it up.
You don't know his name is Jack Nicholson, right?
No, it's in the movie.
No, I believe his character name is Jack, but I don't remember what his. No, she's gonna find it.
Yes.
But the thing about it is, that in the book, you really can feel for him. Like
Yeah.
you can empathize with him because he's just a guy struggling with addiction, and a ghost takes advantage of that.
Jack Torrance.
Torrance, thank you.
See, I knew it was something.
Yep.
Yeah, I knew he had a last name too.
I was.
You're close. You're close.
Yeah, because it's Danny Torrance. And in the
Yeah.
Doctor Sleep, it's Danny.
I couldn't remember that last name to say the life of it. Thank you for Google. That's exactly it. So
Well, what would everybody rate this movie, Evil Dead 2? I rate it an 8 out of 10.
this is a 10 for me. Absolutely, just a 10. I think it's a perfect
Yeah, I have to go
piece
to
of
10.
horror comedy. Yeah,
I will give this 100% a 10.
yeah.
Wow, I'm the only asshole.
Yeah, you're the only. Yeah, you were like, I want to play it cool. I don't want everybody to think I love this movie now. I don't want to commit to this Evil Dead
Now I
franchise.
feel like I should come down a point,
Yeah,
just cause, or half a point.
No,
No.
I give it an 8 because it's not a perfect movie. It has some continuity issues.
it does. The continuity, schmontinuity.
Yeah, there's absolutely no continuity. But it is a fun movie, and
You're entertained, right?
yeah, I'm entertained.
That's what it's supposed to do.
It's not that I don't like the movie. I love the movie, but it's
Visually, I mean, it's nice to look at. It keeps your attention. You're not bored.
I'm gonna edit this into a clip of you hating Evil Dead 2.
I don't hate Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead 2 is your Chloe Grace Moretz.
No, it's not.
She hates Chloe Grace.
I
Moretz.
don't hate Chloe Grace.
If you had asked me the first time I watched The Evil Dead 2, I probably would have given it like a 6.
Mm-hmm.
But no, after rewatching it and seeing it and actually thinking of it as not a second movie, but actually just the first movie,
Yeah.
it's a lot better. But it's
know,
also missing some of that nice raw material he had in Evil Dead.
That is true. I think there is always a level of rawness that could be missing from like a low budget film to
It's still
its
pretty raw.
remake or its sequel. But there's a lot more polish here. And there is much more good with that than the negatives that they lose. I think that far outweighs the positives do in this.
And you know what? I changed my mind. I'm gonna go to a 9.5 just because of the chimpanzee sound.
The
Kind of takes me out of it a little bit. I cannot think about anything.
And you
else.
don't like the girl screaming either.
Oh yes, the annoying girl screaming. Yes.
They kept mocking her on the commentary track.
Yes.
Too.
God, she's piercing voice. Okay, now it's a 9. Take another.
Now it's a
0.5.
9. You just keep listing things eventually it's gonna be, 1.5.
I hate the film, but those are just things that are like, oh God.
I'm getting him to my side.
It's Bobby Joe.
I don't remember the name of that lady that screams a lot. She's just lady that screams a lot.
She's not really important to be named. She's
Right.
daughter of the important character who
she's
read
the
the
chick
book.
that tries to kill Ash with an axe randomly. Well, maybe not randomly, but
Well, I mean, she had a reason. He did try to murder her.
yes.
Yeah.
And then
However, he was not a monster anymore, clearly.
dragging the hillbilly guy very
She was-
gingerly across
She was
the floor.
trying to save him.
He's bleeding.
Yeah,
to
but
death.
he's like, ow, you're hurting me. And she's like, shut up.
She's kind of impressive though. She's lugging that big dude around like nothing.
And it's like one of the best comedic sequences. She's just torturing him, trying to get him out of the way, only so he could be brutally murdered by her zombie mother.
Yeah.
That's right. They pull him down into the cellar.
I love
And
her
that's
trying
when
to,
all the blood comes out.
still trying to pull him as the blood geyser is coming. Like once you're hit with a wave of blood, you go and let go.
Yeah.
It's over. You go and let go.
Done at that point.
Okay, so do you guys want to know how everybody else felt about these movies?
Oh yeah, shoot.
We got a 4.4 user review, an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb.
Blasphemy.
And if you think that people love this movie, they did. but I managed to find somebody who didn't like this movie. This review is called Evil Dead 2.
Oh my.
He thought he was so clever.
Why was this movie ever even made? As if the first Evil Dead movie wasn't bad enough, which it was, they, the filmmakers, decided to make a sequel. Actually, it's not even really fair to call it a sequel. It's more like a remake of the first than a sequel. I've heard this film described as a horror comedy. Although I think if you find any humor in this movie, I'm willing to bet you must be under the age of 10. It's truly an insult to the intelligence of any person with half a brain and a total waste of life to watch.
Not only does he not like the movie, if you like the movie, you're a piece of shit.
I just can't believe this film has the following it does. It's quite remarkable in my opinion.
I can't believe people enjoy fun.
Right?
What's the matter with
Who
these
wants
assholes?
to laugh? You know?
I think Sam Raimi should have stuck to making his Super 8 shorts in his backyard instead of directing Hollywood features. The guy is a hack. Sorry, folks. It's
my
true.
God.
I wouldn't even recommend watching it on television for free.
Who hurt
It'd
you?
still be a waste of your time.
Jesus.
Wow, man.
Damn.
That is a ton of hate.
I told you I found somebody that didn't like this movie.
So you found someone who didn't like this movie. One of the things I was shocked by when I bought the DVD for the first time is it has a critical quote on the cover, and it's 3 stars by Roger Ebert, thumb up. And he gave it a good review. His other half, Siskel, did not. But Roger Ebert, a legendary critic, is infamous for hating horror movies. But he really enjoyed Evil Dead 2, and I'm going to read his review right here. Roger Ebert says, Evil 2 Dead by Dawn is a comedy disguised as a blood-soaked shockorama. It looks specifically like a routine horror movie, a vomitorium designed to separate callow teenagers from their lunch. But look a little closer, and you'll realize the movie is a fairly sophisticated satire. Level 1 viewers will say it's in bad taste. Level 2 folks like myself will perceive it is about bad taste. The plot. Visitors to a cottage in the Michigan woods discover a rare copy of the Book of the Dead and accidentally invoke evil spirits. The spirits run amok, disemboweling and vivisecting their victims. The heroes battle manfully with their dread supernatural forces, but he is no match for the unspeakably vile creatures in the basement, in the woods, and behind every door. The story is told with wall-to-wall special effects. Skeletons dance in the moonlight, heads spin on the top of bodies, hands go berserk and start attacking their owners. After they are chopped off, they have a life of their own. Heads are clamped on devices and squished. Blood sprays all over everything. Guts spill. Slime spews. If nauseating images of horrific gore are not, as they say, your cup of tea, the odds are good you will not have a great time during the Evil Dead. On the other hand, if you know it's all special effects, and if you've seen a lot of other movies that have a sense of humor, you might have a great time at Evil Dead 2. I did. The movie devours ideas at such a rate that it begins to repeat itself toward the end, but the first 45 minutes have a kind of manic, inspired genius to them. Consider, for example, the scene where the hero severs his hand from his body, and the hand takes on a life of its own, attacking him. Leave out the blood and the gore and a few of the details, and this entire sequence builds like a tribute to the Three Stooges. Consider the scene where the hero attaches a chainsaw to what's left of his amputated arm. Disgusting, right? But director Sam Raimi approaches it as a sly jab at the way Robert De Niro armed himself in Taxi Driver. I'm not suggesting that Evil Dead 2 is fun merely because you can spot the references to the other films. It is because the violence and gore are carried to such an extreme that they stop being disgusting and become surrealistic. The movie's timing aims for comedy, not shocks, and the grubby, low-budget intensity of the film gives it a lovable quality that high-tech movies wouldn't have. There's one shot in the film that is some kind of masterpiece. There is a force out there in the woods. We never see it, but we see things from its point of view. In one long and very complex, unbroken point of view shot, the force roars through the woods, flattens everything, and crashes the cabin door, and roars through the room after room with invisible savagery, chasing the hero until, but I wouldn't dream of giving away the joke. 3 stars.
Okay, Roger. I can get behind that.
Yeah, I think, like I said, Ebert had a bad reputation for disliking horror movies, but he was just a critic. Some things stuck with him, some things didn't. He gave a 4-star review to Dawn of the Dead. He loved that movie. He was one of the early champions of that film. When a lot of critics sort of dismissed it, he was one of the first guys to be like, no, this is one of the best movies of the year. And now we recognize Dawn of the Dead as a true fucking classic.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of movies like that Ebert was right on the forefront of. But, as you get older, movies made by another generation are going to feel a little out of place with you. So I think that's why a lot of like late 80s and 90s and O's movies he gave a bad review to that we have a good feeling of. Well, he was already an old man. He doesn't understand where a lot of these new references and these new feelings from a new generation come. These things that we just grew up with. And I think that's one of the things that's a bit unfair to him, but he certainly did love a number of horror flicks in his time. And this is one.
That's what kills me about the new ones, the new Evil Deads. It's just, the charm is gone in the new ones. It's just gore.
I think it was a smart idea because I don't know if anybody else can do horror comedy without Sam Raimi being there and without Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
I think without those two guys working together, I don't think you can achieve that same kind of tone. So I think tackling them as a bit more of a serious horror movie, I think was a pretty good idea. Because the concept of the Evil Dead can be sort of horrifying. So I think portraying it that way is not a bad idea.
It was more shock than awe.
Yeah.
Sure, in those movies.
And like I said, I do like both reboots, especially the last one. I think that was really strong, especially for its budget.
Yeah.
It was another lower budget film. And, it felt like there was ingenuity behind it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I appreciated. And it was clever at times, which is one of the things I always appreciate about a movie when I can sort of smile at it and go like, that was a good idea. I like that. That was fun. A lot of movies don't give me that opportunity. They just give me things I've seen before over and over again.
The originals are definitely, they get me in the feels.
Yeah.
Member Berry's hardcore.
There's something really special about them. And I wonder how long the specialness of Evil Dead will last for generations. Like, generation beyond, like Generation Z and stuff like that, truly.
I think it'll stand the test of time.
Will Maya, will your children have an appreciation for a movie like this? I'm
going to show it to them, whether they like it or not.
And that's the thing. I think 80s movies and stuff like that have held up better than I think when I was a kid 50s movies have. Because I think the 50s movies from the 60s or the 70s, I think most of the part we didn't give a shit about.
I often worry though, like how the youth feels about like Freddy and Jason.
Yeah. Well,
and Chucky.
I think one of the things I was very happy about with the Friday the 13th video game were its sales numbers. Because for years, people have said, like, there doesn't need to be a Friday the 13th movie. It's old, it's dead, nobody cares. And they sold 1 million copies of that game in a month. And they thought they might sell a couple 100,000. But like, I was like, yeah, people love that character. For some reason they do, even though he's not much of a character, they love him. And they would like to see another one, but there hasn't been one for a number of years due to legal issues and producing and things like that, and the person who owns the franchise isn't that smart. So sometimes, bad things happen, I think Ready Player One wasn't a great movie, but I saw that on opening weekend, and the best reaction in the movie was that guy, it's fucking Chucky, and he gets killed by Chucky. And that was the best reaction in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think people love these horror icons and these characters because there's very few of them. I think an action hero is a dime a dozen, and a fantasy hero is a dime a dozen. But you talk about your slashers, you got Freddy, you got Jason,
different staples of it.
Yeah, you got Chucky, and every now and then you add a new one. We had in the '90s they added, of course, Michael Myers, obviously. Yeah. They added Ghostface. And I think recently we've added Art the Clown with Terrifier.
Yes.
As another horror icon. And like I said, it takes time for these things to develop. And then, like I said, I wouldn't have thought a slasher movie would be very popular, but Terrifier destroyed at the box office.
Yes.
Great numbers. And that is what we've sort of talked about, is a real independent movie. Mm-hmm. A guy just with a camera and some passion, just making a movie, getting it out there, and it hit. Terrifier isn't great, but it showed what he wanted to do. And I think Terrifier 2 is a much better example of that.
But it's the same with like Evil Dead.
Yeah, I think Evil Dead is just an example of what he wanted to do. Yeah.
But Evil Dead 2 is better. Terrifier was just okay. It's very gritty and raw. Mm-hmm. But Terrifier 2 is a little bit more refined.
Yeah, and
there's a little bit more things figured out.
Yeah, and it has a final girl, so I mean, you want to buck trends, but you have to give the viewers what they want. That's the thing. You can have a brutal killer, but he's got to get his comeuppance when the runtime is over. It's how it works.
Now, when the Evil Dead first came out, were they portraying it as a horror film or?
Yes.
Okay.
This was
so that way they
marketed
were
as
going for horror for that.
Yeah, it wasn't until Army of Darkness that they marketed it for more of a comedy.
So I'm guessing they must have listened to the audience feedback on it and said, okay, hey, they're not really taking this serious as a horror film. They're gonna this is more tongue-in-cheek kind of funny slasher.
Yeah, and I think it's something Raimi wanted to do more of. And I told you about Crime Wave, where he wanted to do a lot of that,
Yeah.
and just it didn't really get to materialize like he wanted. And he's like, well, I can do what I want with Evil Dead. And he's like, let's lean into that because I think like I can do that. I can nail that. And he was right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of a lot of directors who could have done a horror movie and then go back to something as comedic as that. And Raimi's had incredible range throughout his career. So
Yeah.
his level of camp, I think, was perfect to bring in this era of superhero movies because he had done some pretty decent prestige dramas like The Gift, and I'm trying to remember that movie with Billy Bob Thornton and Bill Paxton, where they find $1 million and they all end up killing each other. A Simple Plan, pardon me. And that's a great movie. I think that was like a Golden Globe nominee. So he'd shown that he had these kind of chops and he could still do that. So him being able to do something that's kind of cheesy like a comic book movie, but give it just enough dramatic focus to make it something people cared about. And it's another good example. Spider-Man does it pretty well, but Spider-Man walks so Spider-Man 2 could run. Because that movie nails that tone.
Mm-hmm.
It is the perfect line between comic book cheese and a real movie about people you care about. And that's what's different about Spider-Man 2. You care about everybody in that movie. Like at the end of the movie, one of my favorite moments is Doc Ock looking at Spider-Man when he takes his mask off, he reveals he's Peter Parker, and he chuckles. Brilliant but lazy.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I get it. That's why you don't do anything else. You're the fucking Spider-Man. You're like, but that moment doesn't work without all that character work between the two of them. That Doc Ock isn't a bad guy at all. He's a really good person. He's just been manipulated, and they carried that into that other MCU film.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
I personally love that last one. The third, is it No Way Home?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This new Spider-Man. I thought it was really great.
I don't know. I wasn't too crazy about the Multiverse of Madness. I got kind of bored in it a little bit.
I think that was one of the stronger efforts from the MCU over the last couple of years, but that isn't saying a ton. But I still
literally
enjoyed
watched it
it
because of Sam Raimi. I thought, oh, it's going to be interesting. And you could see hints of Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
There were some Raimi moments in it.
Very visceral, like ugly moments with zombie-ish looking themes in there, but it didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah.
The whole multiverse thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think multiverse just didn't really land with a lot of people. You have to be doing some fun, interesting things with it. And they did a couple of things that were interesting, but not enough to really maintain it. Like it was nice to see a different world. I kind of like Scarlet Witch killing the alternate Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun scene.
Yeah.
That was cool.
That's brutal. That's
yeah.
very brutal.
But like I said, a lot of the stuff in those scenes are references to like a What If show on Disney Plus. So you don't like Agent Peggy Carter becoming Captain Britain or whatever. Like that's not a thing in the movies. That's only in a TV show.
Yeah.
So like if you've never been introduced to that character, it might be kind of weird to you. Maybe you just roll with it, but that's kind of the problem Disney has.
All right. Well, I think we've exhausted Evil Dead 2.
I think, Mara's been giving me the sign for like 5 minutes. It's time to wrap up the show.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people are chatting and having a good time. And you're like, hey, let's wrap it up.
Got lost. A lot in there.
But the point is, everybody loves Evil Dead 2, and we got to talk about it. And I was really glad that we did. I have no idea what's on the docket for next week. We'll figure that out.
Well, we got to do our best and worst at some point.
Yeah, so I think that's what's coming up next. We'll probably do our worst of 2025, and then we'll follow that up with our best of 2025, and then we'll probably go right into Oscar coverage.
Yeah, basically. But all right.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
thanks a lot for being on the show. We really appreciate it. Gave it a different vibe this week, and this was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, we went an hour and 10, so we had a good time, John.
Yeah.
Long form content.
All right. And with that, guys, we are out.
Bye-bye.